Hi YouTube! As per this channel's tradition, I'll be breaking down the trends from the Spring-Summer 2026 runway collections that have just shown across New York, London, Milan and Paris. In time of making this video, it's October 2025. Summer has well and truly ended over here in London, so it's weird to think that far ahead, but that's just how Fashion Week works, and I do think it's always pretty fun. So I hope you enjoy this video, and if you're watching it now or you're watching it in spring summer 2026 or anytime you fancy watching this video on YouTube, I hope it can give you some fashion inspo. Let's just jump in. Thank you for waiting for this video if you have been. Presumptuous of me. I like to start with colour, and in every fashion week there's always plenty of black and white and nudes and earthy tones, and we did see those. Of course we did. We saw browns, we saw creams and beiges and all that stuff, so I don't feel I need to especially report on those. But key standout colours, we're seeing an array of both brights and pastels. And that isn't too surprising for warmer weather. The vibrancy feels joyful, and personally I'm happy to see the boldness, and I enjoyed all of the colour combinations that I did see. This arty array says 80s to me, and I'm going to be saying 80s many times in this video, just to let you know already. Spoiler, feel free to take a sip of whatever liquid you have beside you when I say 80s. Pastel pinks felt understated and kind of nudie, romantic, perfect for those who are pink based in their colouring. That's their undertones in their skin, their hair, eyes even. That pink versus bright pink, quite bubblegummy Barbie shade that is loud and is fun. Great for those like a spring, especially that warm tone pink, or a winter, which is that electric pink. There is a pink, I believe, for everyone. If you're an autumn, it's a bit more of the warmer peachy pink, which I think fits into the kind of nudie pastels that we saw. And some of those pinks I saw paired with bright red, a combo I personally enjoy. I like the two similar colours sat next to each other on the wheel. It's a kinda enjoyable taboo. And speaking of red, that bright spring tomatoey red is still a very hot shade, and it has been for quite a while. There was plenty of this power colour walking the runways, so anyone who has been stocking up on that these past few seasons, keep it. You guys can relax. There was a lot of cornflowery, soft baby blue, and that does work for many people. Again, is it pinky tone? Is it goldy tone? Find your baby blue. This kind of colour, we see it in those traditional shirty fabrics like what I've got on today, which we did see quite a bit on the runways, and also that pajama-y shirt fabric. There is definitely a fine line between traditional pajamas and traditional workwear. A brighter, more aquatic blue, kind of turquoisey blue, was also very present. Cerulean. Never said it out loud, never known how to pronounce it. Maybe I need to watch Devil Wears Prada a few more times first. That's what Vogue are dubbing it. That shade was also appearing a lot. The greeny tone of it is very good for an autumn. The brighter versions of it is very good for a spring. And the colour itself has that feeling of warm weather, has that feeling of holiday, being by the beach, the bright blue waters in a nice country kind of vibe. I spotted quite a bit of lilac as well. It's a nice kind of middle of the road colour, if you like. It like literally is. It's mixing two colours. And it can be both fun, cute, sweet without being too much. It's a good tone. That buttery yellow that's a big hit now was still in many collections. Great again for cooler complexions, as well as the bright yellow that's good for the warmer complexions. Both yellows evoke that happy feeling that was definitely around in many of these collections. The joy in dressing, the dopamine in dressing, and it feels warm weather appropriate. When it gets warm, you want to be loud, you want to be fun, you want to be colourful, and it feels like a good match to be in yellow in the summer. Now moving from colour into pattern, there weren't many surprises here. Granny florals for spring, groundbreaking, stripes as you would want, and polka dots, an absolute mainstay. So what's different this year? The granny florals I feel are in line with a few of the moods, sometimes maximalist, romantic and modern, all mixed up together, and I do enjoy that. There was a kind of Edwardian-y, Victorian-y history feeling that a soft palette, dainty, ditzy, floral matches. Of course, these historic feelings are, you know, just nods, not full-on costume. And what we see with these fabrics and these shapes and styles feel fresh, they feel modern. It's maybe an older concept that has been taken into the now. I'm calling these florals granny. They're a little tableclothy, but in no way does it feel that way. They feel very cool, and I think there is something cool in taking an uncool and making it sexy. The other way we see florals is a kind of 80s way. The 80s had these pastel florals in everything from chintzy homes and homeware and home decor to cute clothing that some might find garish. I don't right now. And in the 80s there were those Edwardian, Victorian-y influences in fashion. Stripes are a summer staple. They feel nautical, they feel holiday. What we saw this season was clashy, vibrant, maximalist, playful stripes. And I enjoyed how they were paired in an eclectic way. I enjoyed the colour combos of said stripes. And I enjoyed the classic shirts and shirting, that traditional, the varsity, the preppiness. We also did see blocky stripes in rugby tops. I know that has been trending for a while and will continue to, and I like that as well. Happy with many of these trends. Another thing that gained much traction in the past few seasons was polka dots, and they are certainly sticking around. Again, big in the 80s, and I can tell you the 80s is gonna be big next summer. If you thought you were seeing a bit of it now, you are certainly seeing it next year. The polka dots were mainly black and white, the classic. Small, big, clash to different sizes, clash to different colours, take your pick. And if you've watched this channel before, you know what I'm gonna say. Smaller person, smaller polka dot, bigger person, bigger polka dot. You just want it to be in harmony with you. Learn your dot because they are not going anywhere. And they are, I think, evoking a feeling of fun in fashion. There's something kind of silly about a polka dot, something kind of clowny. Printed motifs ranged from fun and statement transfers, slogans and designs on a classic tee and dress. There were many fun choices on dresses, and there were also just artsier, more abstract prints and patterns and painted vibes that join in on that art feeling. Going into texture, there was plenty of it. 3D crafted tactile and textural surfaces appearing in many collections, and something that can get lost and forgotten at Fashion Weeks is creativity and exploration, and we were definitely able to experience more beauty and interest as well as the classic pieces. There was fluff, feathers and fringing and sequin and sparkle that have been dominating the runways recently. Feathers, of course, having that luxury feeling. Some were clumped together, some were sparse and spread around, but they add to that overall look. Simple shaped items would let those feathers shine, and we saw many pieces that were just simple and covered in them, as well as designers leaning into the flamboyance of them as funky trims in any place of the outfit you can imagine. Do need to look into it further, but I believe Stella McCartney is doing something interesting with a feather. Fringing was very similar, used on a simple item again to show it off, add that interest, give it a bit of drama in a hem or a whole piece that has been fringed. And fringed bags were in many collections, and I think they could be a hot accessory item for next year. A pop of drama in your arm, and just be careful putting them down that they don't trail on the floor. That is the one thing with fringing. Maybe it is the kind of indie sleaze coming back that is bringing back the the fringed bag, but in a new 26 modern way. And it does tie in with some of that boho-y summer feeling that was apparent in collections as well, not dismissing the boho. Lace leans into romance, which is hard to put your finger on, but there was that femininity, the sexiness, the cuteness in collections, and lace gives you that sexiness that you could want in the summer, showing skin through see-throughness. Great for a hot day, lets you breathe. And see-throughness is fun for layering. Lace was classic, it was classy, and it was experimented with in colours and in shapes. We did see a lot of interesting things done with lace, and I saw a lot of lace underpieces, an under top or an under legging pedal pusher, underneath things like a tight, which feels kind of 80s. Also seeing sequins gives that feeling of opulence, sparkle, glamour, and feeds into that showmanship, even if it wasn't like Broadway, like Hollywood, like sequin, like there were sequins, again, modern way. And it wasn't just the sequin, there was a feeling of jewels, bejeweledness in the textures, in the craft. You know, shiny, party girl, dress up, sparkle. We're getting some vibes of the fun in dressing up, and I'm glad that hasn't been lost. Getting into shape of clothing, they were quite a lot of big floaty shapes, loose and drapey and puffed up. I literally made a folder for this called balloon bottoms. Now, what era did big, bold shapes? 80s again, mate. Big oversized suits, of course, 80s. And not forgetting a big sleeve. There were many sleeves that puffed and frilled out, both short and long, as well as large shoulders carrying them, and a general sculptural round feeling, almost like the barrel leg trouser, but like a sleeve, barrel arm sleeve. This isn't always the easiest to pull off. You may not want to add volume to your top half. It may be that actually you don't like your shoulders, you don't like your arms, maybe you're quite busty, and all of this is going to attract too much attention upstairs. So ignore this part, this trend isn't for you, but enjoy the pictures. But if you're a pear shape and you've got quite a round bottom half and you want to balance that, make your top half a bit poofier, this is good for you. It will help you balance out that bottom half and create as much curve on the top as there is on the bottom, hopefully. Balloon bottoms being the catch-all that I made for an abundance of balloon, ranged from little puffy bloomer shorts, bloomers, historic underwear, but now made cute and current, and certainly not something to hide away. I know that we had bloomers and this kind of lacy little bottoms and things like that this summer, so what is great about these repeats and trends is you can hang on to stuff, and if you missed it, get it next year. Balloony trousers, puffed and tucking in the hem into a boot, definitely cuffed it and puffed it even more. There were puffy mini skirts, puffy hems, puffy maxi skirts, puffy dresses, and they were tucked under and draped under in that soft duvet-ish kind of way. They felt draped, they felt almost kind of throw on, and you can imagine the designer carefully pulling and crafting and ballooning it themselves. It's nice to think that and imagine that when you're watching a runway. And in general, there were many drapey shapes. The unplanned creativeness of that, I think, feels nice. And of course, if it's premeditated, that's pretty cool too, to sit there with a drawing of a figure and draw how you imagine a fabric is gonna drape. Going back again to the 80s, there were pleat front trousers kept popping up, big and wide and pulled in at that waist. Very Miami Vice, and I am not mad at it. I love a pleat. On the opposite end of that, we saw those skinny jeans, skinny trousers, leggings, tight pedal pushers, which I did warn you they were going to be rearing their heads, or legs rather. Not feeling stale though, or even that retro. I know there is the indie sleaze 2010s coming back in, which is probably where they're coming from, but maybe it's how they were paired with other pieces. It could be the trouseriness of them all, or the slight flare out at the bottom of quite a few of them, or that many of them had high waists that make these bottoms feel quite modern. And I don't think teenagers or fashion people are gonna dislike them that much. Pedal pushers for me are a bit of a personal dislike. Don't know if it's the awkwardness of the cutoff or just a part of my childhood that I'm a bit over, but it really is a current cool girl thing, the pedal pusher, so it is another trend that is not going anywhere. Again, to think of the 80s, they did have them, and that's quite noughties as well, and noughties is still a thing. Remember, the noughties quite liked looking to the past too, so maybe the noughties was influenced by the 80s. I love fashion history. Taking the thoughts back to Edwardian again, speaking of the past, but going really back into the past. Edwardian, Victorian, you get it. The hip was big in a structural way, like boned and 3D large. And how were they modernized for 2026? It may be that such a big, loud shape tended to feel quite understated. It was like a subtle flare out at the hip. It may be the choice of fabric. Some of them even felt quite sporty. It wasn't just like corsetry. There were suits that were made to jut out. And that drama in the shape, I'm enjoying it, I'm feeling it. I like the theatre of it. And I like the modernization of such a historical thing. And leading from this, the peplum is another way to draw that eye to your waist. And it can add more curve to your silhouette if you would like some. If you're someone that has a shorter or longer torso than usual, it can be hard to get the peplum in the same place. But if you can find a top where the peplum is kind of loosely there, then it might not matter if it's falling on your actual waist or a bit higher or a bit lower. On the feeling of drama and big bold silhouettes, I saw quite a few ball gowns, or at least that's what I'm calling them. That's what the folder was called. For me, this is a dress that comes really in and comes really out. Classic feminine retro drama. But not all of these were that classic floral 50s party ball gown. They were again modernized, simplified, grungified if you like, as well as the dramatic feminine classic ones too. Big shape being the key, the big silhouette. And on this, I do feel that fashion felt more this season. Catwalk shows from designers that you would pay to see, pay to be wowed by. A designer collection, luxury, handmade by people who know their stuff. They're of course ready to wear pieces that are covetable, and I'd love to see the high street versions. And you do need to see that on runways. Years of looking through many collections, you can feel fatigue, and I do feel that I enjoyed the collections as a whole and saved more pictures than I have done in previous seasons. But back on some more trend items, because I'm not done, I just keep sidebarring and I'm sorry. Going back to historic underwear, corsetry was a big trend. In particular, many of them were see-through and you could see the boning, you could see the inner workings, which is cool. And like the bloomers, not too sweet, modernized and just a classic shape. You could see the boning through any fabric chosen. There were denim corsets, bold shades, colors, but definitely that feeling of being corseted. Bodices were also cut into little side cuts and peekaboos and that level of interest. Streamlining, slicing into the body. Wouldn't personally do cutouts. Like the peplum probably just wouldn't come in the right place. Clothes aren't made for people like me, but I like looking at it. Accessories. Scarves were seen, not just long and skinny and thrown on top of that outfit, but there were little ones and they were tied under shirt collars, like ribbons, like bows, and worn around necks like chokers. And we also saw the scarf itself as a print and kind of in the clothing, which is summery. Scarves are not only wintry, woolly, but they are also silky, summery. And things worn as scarves, I think many stylists were doing this, tying things around the shoulders, around the hips, like a scarf. My folder called it tie front, just sort of wrapping a cardigan around and tying it somewhere on the front. It was also on the hips again, giving more hip, I suppose, and built into the structure of the skirt. So the skirt looked pulled together, it looked saronged by this tie front, which ties into the feeling of gathering and draping. It's quite summery to be wearing a shirt, take it off, tie it around your hips. It's quite summery to want to take a cardigan but don't know if you're going to be too hot but might need it in the evening, so you tie it around your shoulders. And it's also quite preppy, especially on the shoulders, but not in a bad way. It's fun to see the tie front contrasting whatever is underneath it, something tied over a sparkly something. That feels like a doable bit of styling that's interesting and fun. Big belts and layered belts, layering your belts, adds to that maximalism as oversized tends to, adding to the fun and quirkiness in collections by supersizing things. If you like this, just be careful that it doesn't overwhelm you, but it is totally a great way of perking up an outfit with personality and drawing your eye to your waist if you'd like to do that. Long necklaces and beads draped over necklines. In particular, there were little purses and usable pendants, keyring kind of items. This could be really big. It's totally a current accessory mood, and many people and brands have been getting into, you know, the phone crossbody, and this is not a far step away from that. Having a little coin purse that just hooks on is totally doable. You could literally do that right now, and I like the little coin purse, not just have coins but to have tablets in. If you like to have tablets but you don't want them jingling around a big loose bag, you can totally do whatever you like with the coin purse. I've been seeing a lot of key rings that have makeup on them, lip glosses and hand creams and stuff like that, and in general reusable everyday key rings on a long strap are gonna be a thing, whether you wear it as a necklace or a crossbody like a bag, however you do it. Big now will be big next year, and the big brands will be on it. So let's wrap this all up. There were a lot of debut collections, brands, musical chairs this season, and I wasn't excited about it going into this, but honestly I loved many of these debuts. I tried to make a few shorts to show some of them, but if you haven't watched it already, I'm going to say here, check out Jonathan Anderson at Dior. I really enjoyed that one. Check out Dario Vitali for Versace. I also really enjoyed that. On the trends themselves, it's a little disappointing not to note anything particularly new, though it is kind of hard to come up with something new and never seen before in this day and age. And even though I felt like the trends I saw were ones that we have been seeing a lot in recent years, that is really not a bad thing as a consumer. I was just disappointed as a Fashion Week nerd. As a wearer of fashion, great. And I like a lot of these trends, and I'm personally happy about loads of them. And one thing I noted, there were more older models on the runways than usual, and they looked absolutely stunning. A few seasons ago, I'd spotted some older faces here and there, and then it kind of stopped. But spring summer 26, older models were back in abundance, and in many collections, most people had an older face, and this was across the countries. Sometimes Italy and Paris don't join in, apart from the odd celebrity appearance here and there. Many more this season. Really happy to see it, and I think as a model it's great to have a longer window to work in. It was nice to see models that I liked in the past, you know, still working. And the main thing, of course, the bigger picture here, it's great to see that beauty and style is ageless, and we are seeing that not just on runways but on red carpets. Many of my clients come to me saying they've reached an age, whatever that is to them, and they don't know how to style themselves for this number, and they're asking if it's okay to wear this and okay to shop here. And I really do believe that right now there are no rules. An age doesn't have to look a certain way anymore. They are just clothes. If you love the piece and you put it on and you feel good in it, that is your answer. On dressing younger, me as a 32-year-old, I pick up items from the kids section aged 10, 11, and they fit me and they make me feel good, and I will continue to do that even if more petite clothing does become available. And on that thought, more thoughts, I do wonder if runways will ever have smaller models. Anyway, enough of me talking. I hope you enjoyed my take. I hope you enjoyed the pictures. Future me editing this is groaning because there are loads of looks I haven't been able to fit in this video that I really like. If you're watching this video and you're also loving some of these trends but unsure how you'd style them in your day-to-day and would like some help from a personal stylist like myself, please get in touch and I'd be happy to work with you if I can. If you watched all of this, thank you.